wanted to share with you this morning one of my favorite stories. It's called The Pointless People. Chapter 1 by Herbert is entitled Snakes. In the beginning, God didn't make just two people. God made a bunch of us. God wanted us to have a whole lot of fun and said, you really can't have fun unless there's a whole gang of you. God put us in Eden, which was a combination garden and playground and park, and told us to have fun. And we did have fun, just like God expected. We rolled down the hills, waded in the streams, climbed on the trees, swung on the vines, ran in the meadows, frolicked in the woods, hid in the bushes, and acted silly. We laughed a lot. Then one day the snake told us that we weren't really having fun because we weren't keeping score. Well, we didn't know what score was. When he explained it, we still couldn't see the fun, but then the snake said that we should give an apple to the person who was the best at all the games. And we never know who the best was without keeping score. We could all see the fun of that, of course, because we were all sure that we were the best. Things became very different after that. We yelled a lot. We had to make up new scoring rules for most of the games. And for others, like frolicking, we stopped playing because they were just too hard to score. By the time God found out what had happened, we were spending about 45 minutes a day actually playing games, and the rest of the time we were working out the scoring. God was wroth about that. Very, very wroth. So God said we couldn't use the garden anymore because we weren't having fun. We told God we were having lots of fun. God was just being narrow-minded because it wasn't exactly the kind of fun that he thought of. God wouldn't listen. God kicked us out and said we couldn't come back until we stopped keeping score. To rub it in, to really get our attention, God told us that we were all going to die and that our scores wouldn't mean anything in the end. My cumulative all-game score is now 16,548. And that means a lot to me. If I can get to 20,000 before I die, I'll know that I've accomplished something. And even if I can't, my life has a lot of meaning because I've taught my children how to score high. And they'll be able to reach 20,000, maybe even 30,000. If you ask me, it was life in the garden that didn't mean anything. Fun is great in its place, but without scoring, there's no reason for it. God actually has a very superficial view of life, and I'm glad that my children are being raised away from God's influence. We were lucky. We're all very grateful to the snake. Chapter 2, written by Erlander. The birth of the pointless people. God missed the old gang and remembered how they once waded in the streams, rolled down the hills, climbed on the trees, swung on the vines, frolicked in the woods, and acted silly. But people were frantically piling up their points and condemning those without points. And God became wroth. God's anger burned hotly, and God cried, I will destroy them. And then God wept and said, I cannot destroy them. And God repented. After trying many and different ways to call the people back to pointlessness, God smiled and exclaimed, I have another idea. I will enter the world of point keepers in a very gentle way. God entered the world of point keepers as Emmanuel, God with us. And what Emmanuel did was to tiptoe up to people who didn't have very many points or who had no points, and he would whisper in their ears, you don't need points. And they smiled. Maybe it's true. And then Emmanuel invited all the pointless people to a party. They accepted the invitation and they ate and they drank and they ate some more and danced and played and laughed. And one of them cried out, this party is pointless. And everyone said, yes, it is. And everybody laughed. Others came to the party, and they stood around the edges to see what was going on. Emmanuel turned to them and said, "Come to me, all you who are burdened by keeping score, and I will give you rest." The people who were in charge of the scorekeeping were threatened. They arrested Emmanuel and had him killed. Emmanuel's followers wept. They said, "There's only one thing to do now. Go back to keeping score." It was too good to be true. They laid him in a borrowed tomb. But God said, "The scorekeepers think that things are back to normal." Then God called to Emmanuel in the tomb, "Get up, Emmanuel. Get up, Emmanuel." And Emmanuel got up. He met his friends and said, "Let's get on with the parties." They joined hands and the dance went on. Then Emmanuel breathed on them and they received power to carry on the parties and to carry his yoke, the yoke of caring for each other, caring for the world, and getting in trouble with scorekeepers. Emmanuel departed, but before he left, he whispered, "Remember, the snake was wrong." Then my favorite chapter, chapter 3, also written by Dan Erlander. The pointless people build a liberal arts college. The pointless people went into the world telling everyone that they didn't need to keep score. Many joined them. Together they danced and frolicked in the garden of God's creation. Their frolicking included making music, painting pictures, writing stories and poems, learning more and more about the garden, about its wonders and mysteries, and also contemplating the Creator. They also worked on new ways to take care of the garden. After many generations, the pointless people said, "How can we know our children will continue to frolic with our stories and poems, with pictures and music, our science and our theology? How can we be certain they will continue to create?" They thought and they thought and they thought. Then someone said, "I know, let's start a liberal arts college." And so they did, and behold, it was fun. People gathered there to learn and celebrate and create, to frolic in the wonder of God's creation and human creativity. One year, the snake came to the liberal arts college and said, "Do I have a game for you? It's called grades. Here's how it works. Give the highest score to the one who knows the most about the garden. It's really fun. Why don't you try it?" "If it's fun, we'll try it," the people said. And so they set up this complicated system of grading. And soon the college was filled with tension, anxiety, fear, competition, and alienation. God was wroth again and cried, "Now what do I do?" God thought and then came up with an idea. God tenderly took some dirt from the campus green, molded the dirt into the shape of a human, and breathed into it the breath of life. And behold, in this way, God created the campus pastor. And God said to the campus pastor, "Go forth onto the campus and whisper these words into the ears of the people. You don't need points. You are free. You are free. Just frolic in the arts, the sciences, in theology, philosophy, stories, poetry, music, and dance. Enjoy the garden and learn how to take care of it. Play in the ancient wisdom and build on it. Grow, create, become co-creators with me. Be free." So the campus pastor whispered these words, and many listened and believed. Oh, they still lived within a system of grades, but for them, the power of points was broken. Far more important was simply being in the garden, knowing the garden and the Creator, learning, experiencing, creating. By spring of that year, more people were listening, students, staff, and even faculty. And the snake was very sad. Realizing that he was losing, the snake slithered away. But as he left, he said, "I'll try again. I'll see you in September." Amen.